Hi, everyone. I want to share with you all a couple of books that I've been reading lately, and it's because of the overlap between the ideas in these two works of nonfiction that I think they're significant, and I feel the desire or the need to share them, with people who are forward thinking and who are, actually being a part of the solution to the dilemma that we find ourselves in today, right? Um, the first book I'm going to talk about is this one by Dr. Gabor Mate, and it's In the Realm of the Hungry Ghost. And like I'm going to just, introduce what it is briefly, right? Because I think it's pretty deep, man. Because I myself I identify as a recovering addict, okay? And, so I deal a lot with people who are suffering from manifestations of the disease, which would, that I like to call the disease of addiction. And, I think corporate executives who don't care about people and all they care about is profits, and people who are greedy for money are addicts. They're addicted to money and power. All right. And that's just another manifestation of the disease of addiction. I can put all kinds of spins on it. And, sometimes I like to call it evil. You understand, when people just are self-centered and don't care about nobody else but themselves and feeding their own, impulses and passions, right? Hungry Ghost, the realm of addiction. Jan Cassius has a lean and hungry look. William Shakespeare, Julius Caesar. That's a quote, right? The mandala, or Buddhist wheel of life, revolves through 6 realms. Each realm is populated by characters representing aspects of human existence, our various ways of being. In the beast realm, we are driven by basic survival instincts and appetites such as physical hunger and sexuality, what Freud called the id. The denizens of the hell realm are trapped in a state of unbearable rage and anxiety. In the realm of God, or in the God realm, we transcend our troubles and our egos through sensual, aesthetic, or religious experience, but only temporarily and in ignorance of spiritual truth. Even this enviable state is tinged with loss and suffering. The inhabitants of the hungry ghost realm are depicted as creatures with scrawny necks, small mouths, and emaciated limbs, and large, bloated, and empty bellies. This is the domain of addiction, where we constantly seek something outside ourselves to curb an insatiable yearning for release or fulfillment. The aching emptiness is perpetual because the substances, objects, or pursuits we hope will soothe it are not what we really need. We don't know what we need, and so long as we stay in the hungry ghost mode, we'll never know. We want our lives without being fully present. We haunt our lives without being fully present. Some people dwell much of their lives in one realm or another. Many of us move back and forth from between back and forth between them, perhaps through all of them in the course of a single day. I like that analogy and the metaphor, of the different realms of being and how we can go through them, throughout the day. Like, sometimes I feel that way, myself, that when I'm caught up in my anger and resentment against people, I'm in, trapped in one of those, you know, like the hell realm. You know what I'm saying? Like the hungry ghost realm too is sort of like the helm realm. Where no matter how much food we eat, how much sex we have, how much money we have, like whatever it is, that nothing can fill that our distended bellies. Like, the scrawny necks and little mouths, you can't consume enough to fill that your bloated bellies. You know what I'm saying? I really like that. That's deep. Um, some of the things I like about this guy, man, because he comes from a scientific perspective and he deals with, you know, the brain aspect of addiction. Um, And one thing I want to share is his definition of addiction, right? He says addiction has biological, chemical, neurological, and psychological, medical, emotional, social, political, economic, and spiritual underpinnings, and perhaps others I haven't thought about. To get anywhere near a complete picture, we must keep shaking the kaleidoscope to see what other patterns emerge, right? Because the addiction process is too multifaceted to be understood within any limited framework, my definition of addiction made no mention of disease. Viewing addiction as an illness, either acquired or inherited, narrows it down to a medical issue. It does have some of the features of illness, and these are most pronounced in hardcore drug addicts like the ones I work with in the downtown east side. But not for a moment do I wish to promote the belief that the disease model by itself explains addiction, or even that it's the key to understanding what addiction is all about. Addiction is all about many things. Note, too, that neither the textbook definition of drug addiction nor the broader view we're taking here include the concept of physical dependence or tolerance as a criteria for addiction. Tolerance is an instance of give an inch, take a mile. That is, the addict needs to use more and more of the same substance or engage in more and more of the same behavior to get the same rewarding effects. Although tolerance is a common effect of many addictions, a person does not need to have developed a tolerance to be addicted. And then there's the physical dependence. As defined in medical terms, physical dependence is manifested when a person stops taking a substance and, due to change in the brain and the body, she experiences withdrawal symptoms. Those temporary drug-induced changes form the basis of physical dependence. Although a feature of drug addiction, a person's physical dependence on a substance does not necessarily imply that he is addicted to it. All right, we're dealing with symptoms and not like, the core of the problem, because many people who are have to take medications in one form or another for real physical ailments sometimes do become dependent on those substances, but don't really become addicted. You know what I'm saying? If you can understand, it says the withdrawal syndrome is different for each class of drug. In the case of opiates such as morphine or heroin, it includes nausea, diarrhea, sweats, aches and pains, and weakness, as well as severe anxiety, agitation, and depressed mood. But you don't have to be addicted to experience withdrawal. You just have to have been taking a medication for an extended period of time. As many people has discovered to their chagrin, with abrupt cessation, it's quite possible to suffer highly unpleasant withdrawal symptoms from drugs that are not addictive. Antidepressants, Proxetine or Paxil, and Veloxine, Effexor are but two examples. Withdrawal does not mean you were addicted. For addiction, there also needs to be craving and relapse. In fact, in the case of narcotics, it turns out that the addictive feel-good effect of these drugs seem to act in different parts of the brain than do the effects that lead to physical dependence. When morphine is infused only in the reward circuits of the brain, a rat's brain, addiction-like behavior results, but there's no physical dependence and no withdrawal. Dependence can also be understood as a powerful attachment to harmful substances or behaviors, and this definition gives us a clearer picture of addiction. The addict comes to depend on the substance or behavior in order to make himself feel momentarily calmer or more excited or less dissatisfied with his life. That's the meaning I'll be referring to unless I am specifically describing physical dependence. The narrower medical phenomena. Father Sam Pataro, author of and former Episcopal chaplain of the University of Chicago, said it admirably well in a recent lecture. The heart of addiction is dependency, excessive dependency, unhealthy dependency, unhealthy in the sense of unwhole, dependency that disintegrates and destroys. Wow, that's a lot to digest. You know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of this stuff is so deep, man, that I can revisit it and revisit it because I've, actually read this book before. I have it on my Kindle as well, and it's packed with so much information, man, that you know I can revisit it again and again and again because he talks about why the war on drugs is like, you know, Tupac said, a war against you and me, right? You can't war against a substance. All right, you war against human beings. And that's what's wrong with the whole idea of a war against drugs, because you really can't war against a substance. You're actually, you know, attacking and harming people that are themselves the victims of trauma and, you know, negative environmental influences that, are trying to find relief from their suffering through the use of substances, whether it be alcohol, drugs, sex, overwork, or whatever it is. It's like an escape from the pain and the suffering that they're experiencing in the here and now. And, you know, like, with that, I want to jump right into the other book, which, is pretty deep in and of itself, right? It's called Sapiens by a professor by the name of Yuval Noah Harari. And the reason why I like this one, right, because he talks about in it like a whole host of things that I'm in line with. And it's, he gets into how, like, capitalism or consumerism and is like a symptom of the disease of addiction in itself. It's like addiction to power, and how, like when you start incentivizing like prisons and the prison industrial complex, that you're actually causing harm. When you put prisons on the stock market, that's a motivation for people to fill up the prisons by whatever means necessary, right? All right. And we already know that, like I talked in previous videos about an organization by the name of ALEC. Like, if you have time, you can, view the video, the 13th, dealing with the 13th Amendment, right, on YouTube. There's a ton of information, at these different sources. Even either of these authors could be found on YouTube, and you can, get a deeper insight into what they have to say. In this one, right, he actually, man, is goes way back into, like, the 16th century, and he talks about let me see, the Mississippi bubble, right? In 1717, the Mississippi Company, chartered in France, set out to colonies in the lower Mississippi Valley, established the city of New Orleans in the process. To finance its ambitious plan, the company, which had good connections at the court of Louis XV, sold shares of on the Paris Stock Exchange. Stock Exchange was around, back in the 1700s. And, like, VOC was a company way back then, right? And it was a Dutch company, and it shows how that these companies, right, and the what do you call the mercantile class was responsible for a lot of the destruction and devastations of other civilization in the name of profit, right? Like kings, right, went to these merchants who were the holders of capital to borrow money for their adventures into, territories that were unknown to them. Okay? They were responsible for the wars of conflicts or conquest and the slave trade and all of that. And these were people who were good Christians, all right? you know, um, anyhow, like, I'm not gonna, read a whole lot from this, right? Because, like, in this, he gets into how the Opium War started in China and how the Chinese were forced, all right, to accept opium as in trade for goods and services or whatever, right? And the devastation of that, and that there were private companies that were behind all of that. Much of what we see today is a part of all of that history. So this guy is a historian, you know what I'm saying? And it might not be a bad idea to take a closer look at this, all right, because time is not going to allow for me to delve deeply into this book because it's multifaceted, right? Because, like, he talks about the mythology of capitalism, the mythology of democracy, and all of these things that we buy into as a civilization, and how that without these mythologies we couldn't have large scale countries and civilizations. Like, it's important for people to buy into the ideas behind the Bill of Rights and the Constitution of the United States, right? It's important for people to have like a mythology or a worldview, like Islam and Christianity or whatever, so that large groups of people could, find common ground and have something to unite behind. All right. And it's something that's, largely came from our imagination, largely made up. Okay. So, I think it's important to really, read broadly and drink deeply from the resources or the reservoirs of knowledge that we have, available to us, whether it be in your public library, whether it be on YouTube, the internet, or whatever, because the information and the truth is available to us. All right. Like, some of these people that I quote, are not necessarily, don't share the same perspective about the nature of reality and spirituality that I do. All right, because I believe in a supreme being and I believe in spirituality, and I believe, you know my beliefs are personal to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I question everything. I question even my own beliefs about the nature of reality. And I would suggest that to anyone who has a critical mind and is a critical, thinker. All right. Listen, I love you all. Peace.